Prithvi Shantirantariksha Shantir Dyau Shantir Disha Shantiravantara Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantish Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantir Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantir Shantireva Shanti Shantir Me Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra Sukhinas Santu, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet, Sarvastaratu Durgani, Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu, Sarvas Sadbuddhimapnotu, Sarvas Sarvatra Nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravir Maheti Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tena Mam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So today we begin with chapter 14. This is called Gunatraya Vibhagaha. Gunas Trayam 3. This is the chapter which is dedicated to show the distinction between three gunas. Now, in the course of the discussion on the Gita, we have often referred to these three gunas. Now, this chapter goes into intricate details about those three gunas. In the chapter that we just concluded, we saw that Krishna spoke about kshetra and kshetrajna, matter and spirit, or matter and consciousness, how they are distinct, and yet, although they are as opposed to one another as light and darkness, mysteriously they seem to have come together. In a normal sense, we can say that light and darkness can never be together. How can they be together? If there is light, there is no darkness. If there is darkness, there is no light. Similarly, matter is perishable. Spirit is non-perishable. Matter is limited. No matter how vast it is, it's still not infinite. But spirit is infinite. So they are not just different, but they are totally opposed to one another. So there is really no realistic possibility of their ever coming together again. And yet we find that they are together. And we can see that in our own lives. We are conscious beings, so we are material beings in some sense, since we have the body, but we also have consciousness. And these consciousness and matter, the body-mind complex as it is sometimes called, somehow seem to have formed a good collaboration. So really, as our personality is now, is a combination of consciousness and material ingredients, which seem to be getting along quite well, except that the combination has produced our present human predicament. A life that is wonderful in many ways, but a life that is ultimately not fulfilling because of the ever-present anxiety, stress about not only the uncertainties about future, but the ultimate question about death. So there is the mortality, there is the process of aging, there is stress, anxiety. So no matter how much fulfillment we can try to derive from the world, but because it is limited and because it is perishable, the joy and fulfillment we get from the world are also limited and also perishable. The question that Krishna would answer in this chapter is this coming together of matter and spirit. does it occur on its own, or is God behind it? Sometime you will see, even in the discussion about how life came about, and even science is not quite sure. All that they can say is, in the course of evolution, at some point, the environment seemed just right for the emergence of life. But what does that being right mean? And how did consciousness come? That's never quite explained. Which is why then material sciences tend to look upon consciousness as a material product. Because if it were not a material product, it would be very difficult to fit it into some point during this evolutionary process that suddenly consciousness were to come. And that's why even the exploration of the other planets and their moons in our solar system, there is so much excitement if they find a little bit of moisture, a little bit of water, because that was considered an essential ingredient for the emergence of life. So we kind of know what ingredients make sustaining of life, at least the life as we understand it, possible. But at what point and exactly how, from just dead insentient matter, life and consciousness emerged, it's a mystery. Unless we just accept the material hypothesis that consciousness is just a neurological activity in the brain. Even then, the explanation is not that great, but at least there is some supposition is made at that point. Now that's where the Vedantic approach differs. Vedanta sees consciousness as an independent entity, not a product of matter, completely, as I said in the beginning, completely different and completely, radically different from matter, really. The essential characteristics of matter are then defined by these three. They're not really qualities or attributes as they're sometimes called, but in a general sense we might use those terms. The three essential characteristics, you might say, of matter are these three gunas. One other meaning of the term guna in Sanskrit is a rope. And so rope is something with which we can bind things up. So these gunas can be looked upon as characteristics, but also are getting tied up into this material world has also become possible because of these gunas. And that's the topic that is addressed in chapter 14. So let's read the first verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajñātvā munayas sarve Param siddhimito gataha. The Blessed Lord said, I shall tell you again the supreme knowledge, the best of all knowledges, knowing which all the sages have attained supreme felicity from hence. So again, Krishna introduces the subject by saying, although I'm not going to tell you something radically different or radically new, let me relate this supreme knowledge to you again, the same knowledge through which people of the past have attained that highest felicity. Siddhi is the word in Sanskrit. So you can see it's not as if every chapter is telling us something different or something new, but it's approaching the same truth from a different angle to kind of give us a different snapshot of the same reality. Verse 2. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sargepi nopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. By resorting to this knowledge, they, having attained to my nature, are not reborn even at the time of creation, nor are they distressed at the time of dissolution. So, although the word creation is used here, by creation in Vedantic context does not mean the kind of a one-time event when God created, but creation here is used in the sense of projection. Since everything in most Eastern traditions, time is not linear, time is circular, cyclical. So all movement are ultimately a circle. In some sense, if you see all astronomical bodies, they're all circular. Everything that is infinite tends to be circular. In any case, creation, as understood in the Gita, really means the manifestation of the visible universe. And dissolution means this visible, gross universe again goes back, not to zero, because it didn't come from zero. It again goes back to a very subtle state. Then from a subtle, it becomes gross again, and then becomes subtle again. In some sense, you might compare that with the daily creation and dissolution that occurs of our waking life. So, here is this world, but is strong and solid. I can feel it. But then when I fall asleep, where does this world disappear? There's such a hard, cold reality which we are experiencing now. Where does it disappear? Where does it go? And one way of understanding that is all of this gross universe that I'm experiencing becomes subtle and remains merged in my ignorance. And sleep is really what ignorance is, because I become ignorant of the waking life. So all of this world goes and becomes subtle, sukshma, and then remains embedded in my ignorance. And then come morning, when I wake up, this thing which was already in a subtle form comes up again. And then when I sleep, it goes in again. It's a little bit like you might say, now it's spring and all the leaves are sprouting slowly. It's taking a longer time than we thought, but they are slowly coming out. Now, the potency, the life itself in the trees didn't disappear. The trees didn't die in winter. But all of their visible manifestation of life, the leaves, the flowers, everything kind of became subtle, and just the stump remained. But everything kind of remained in a potential form in the frame of the tree. And then when spring comes, all the leaves come in again. And then when fall comes, that potency again goes in again. So similarly, when we fall asleep, the visible world goes back. When we wake up, it comes up again, which is why the process of waking and asleep is actually called a daily creation and daily dissolution. Nitya Pralaya and Nitya Srishti. So, in some sense, we are daily creating our waking life, our waking world, and daily, not exactly destroying it, but dissolving it within ourselves. Now replicate this experience on a cosmic level. Think about it this way. Now, we don't know. There are all these microorganisms inside our body. The bacteria, the good bacteria, hopefully the bad bacteria are terrible, but good bacteria there is. So although we think we are just, every one of us thinks I am one person, but really, if you look at it just from a perspective of life, there are a lot of microorganisms in our intestines, and because they help, they are very helpful. Now, we don't know exactly what their day-night cycle is. I mean, ours is 24 hours. What exactly? Because they never come out. They don't see the sun, the moon. So we don't know. Their daily cycle may not be 24 hours at all. So as far as their daily waking life and sleeping life will be very different from ours. And since we don't know, we are free to speculate. Since they are tiny organisms, maybe their day and night may be smaller than ours. None, you can't even agree or disagree with me because none of us know what it is. But I'm just imagine that because they are tiny organisms, maybe their day and night are much smaller compared to ours. And now, of course, they are within us. So, just like my day and night is different from their day and night, now think about the cosmic existence and the cosmic being. For all we know, and again, this is none of us can verify, but it's still theoretically possible that just as there are these microorganisms within our body who may not even know that they are within the body of this big person who is a conscious being, we may be the microorganisms in the body of some cosmic being, and we may not even know it. So what would happen if that cosmic being would fall asleep? So what would be the day and night of that cosmic being? Now that cosmic being in the Gita and the Upanishad is called by the name Brahma. This is different from Brahman. Brahman is neither masculine nor feminine. But Brahma, as it is, comes in Indian mythology and mostly in Indian mythology. So Brahma is seen as a being, as a personalized being behind this, from whom this whole universe comes, from whom this visible universe comes. And when Brahma falls asleep, all this visible universe goes inside Brahma, just like when we fall asleep, our universe goes within us. So carrying on that analogy, if the tiny organism within our body have a much smaller day and night cycle, then the day and night cycle of the Brahma, who is much bigger, would be much, much bigger than ours. And so when it is spoken of here as time of creation or dissolution, you might understand it in terms of the time when that cosmic being wakes up. And that is this big creation of the whole universe. And when that cosmic being goes to sleep again, all of this universe is withdrawn back within that cosmic being. And again it comes up and it goes, comes up and it goes. Now what it means is this. We are dependent on that cosmic being. So think about it this way. I hope I'm not making it too abstract. Think about it this way. what would happen when this entire visible universe would become subtle and go inside the cosmic being? It stands to reason, if everything is going to be subtle and go within that cosmic being, all of us are going to be subtle and go into that cosmic being either, because this body, this is a part of the universe. And all of this is now going and remaining in a latent form in the cosmic being. And then, of course, when that cosmic being wakes up, all of these things come up again. So just kind of try to remember this. We have our own life cycle. So we are born, we die, we might go to some different worlds, heavens, hells, or wherever, and then we keep on. So this is one circle, our own life cycle as individual human beings. But there is this cycle of this cosmic being. When this cosmic being goes to sleep, then this circular movement that we all go through comes to a standstill, because everything has become subtle. There is no movement. Then for a long time it remains very subtle. Long time there is nothing. The cosmic being is asleep. Then when the being wakes up again, all of us who are there in a very subtle form, we come up again. Now, when we are there in a very subtle form, what connects us? What connects every one of us back to our own karmas? It's like this. In some sense, this is a kind of a very crude analogy. See, when you travel somewhere and you check in your bag, now all of the bags are put in one place there. And then, of course, they have a system by which, by the label, they know which bag must be put into which flight. They mess it up often, but usually it's supposed to go all right. Now, all of those bags go together, and then when we land at the destination, again those bags come out, and every one of us gets our bag back. In the same way, when this cosmic being goes to sleep at the time of dissolution, so we are become latent, we have become very subtle. Our karmas have become subtle also. So karmas are in a different compartment and we are resting in a different compartment. Then now the cosmic being wakes up. Everything becomes visible, manifest again. So now how would those karmas know where to go? So the idea is this. It's not random. The process is not random. It's not like I just go and pick up somebody's bag from the baggage claim and start walking. So my karma will come to me, and that's where consciousness plays a role. So God does play a role in connecting kshetra with kshetrajna, with the karma, with the one to whom that karma belongs. Now, getting this knowledge, so let's read that verse again now. By resorting to this knowledge, they, having attained to my nature, are not reborn even at the time of creation, nor are they distressed at the time of dissolution. Having attained to my nature means having become spirit itself. What is Krishna's nature? Is pure consciousness. So when, as a result of receiving this knowledge, we attain to that's our true nature of being pure consciousness, then even when the cosmic being goes to sleep, or when the cosmic being wakes up, we are not reborn. In other words, we become free from this cycle because we have no identity with this body and mind. So our body will become a heap of dust or ashes. And once again the creation will come, but we will not come along with it because we have become completely free. Verse 3. Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadhamyaham sambhavas sarvabhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The great nature is my womb. In that I place the germ, and from that, O descendant of Bharata, is the origin of all beings. So the great nature is the Prakriti, the essential source of the material world. So Prakriti is a term used for the basic source from which the material universe comes. So that Krishna says here is my womb, that is the womb. We know that human life comes from a mother's womb. That's why the word womb is used here. So this entire creation, it's a living entity. And this living entity comes from the womb of the source of all material world, and that is Prakriti. In that I place the germ. So the seed in that womb is placed by the Lord. And what is that seed? It's merely a reflection of God's consciousness. So we know that Krishna's nature, God's nature, the essential nature of Brahman is pure consciousness. When that consciousness is reflected in matter, it's then that matter becomes apparently alive, apparently conscious. So we feel ourselves to be conscious beings because the consciousness of the Atman or Brahman is reflected in our mind, in our body, in our intellect. Now, the more subtle the matter, the greater the manifestation of consciousness. The more gross the matter, the lesser the manifestation of consciousness. So, in some sense, it is possible to see the entire universe as filled with consciousness. But those objects which we see as non-living, the manifestation is hardly there, so we can't see it. Very difficult for us to see whether this table is alive or not. So again, it just depends on what our definition of life or things which are alive is. In the 19th century, Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose and many other scientists, they did a lot of research, even on metal and non-living objects, subjected them to electric shocks and they found in a very, very subtle ways that even that which we see as non-living reacting to external stimuli. We are able to see it a little bit more clearly in plants, of course, but most clearly in animals, and even more than animals in human beings. So we see the manifestation of consciousness varies depending on how dense, we might say, that matter is. So all the beings, all life that we see has originated from this great womb of Prakriti, in which the Chaitanya, the consciousness, is reflected. So the germ here means the reflection of consciousness. Verse 4. Sarvayo nishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadyonihi aham bija pradav pita. Whatever forms, O son of Kunti, are born in different wombs, of them the great nature is the womb, and I am the seed-giving father. Now, of course, once this cosmic creation, so to speak, started, when the reflection of consciousness kind of animated the matter, then of course, from that one apparently became many. So this one large womb manifested as many, hundreds and millions of wombs. And that's how then we trace. That's why every living being has its parents. Now what Krishna is saying here is, although beings, living beings are born from different wombs, if you trace it back, the original womb, the original source of every being is the Prakriti. So our body, our mind, which are material, have ultimately come from that basic source of matter. And aham bija pradapita, and the ultimate source who lent that life and consciousness is Brahman itself, or God himself, or Krishna himself. So it's so beautiful. You can see then, looking upon God in theistic books and theistic schools as father, mother, has a reference here. Why has it appeared so natural for a large sections of human beings to look upon God as father or as mother? Because we see God as the source from which all of us have come. And seeing the source in our own little lives, how we come from our parents. And so looking at it in a cosmic sense, ultimately, all of us have come from that divine being. And that is what he means by saying that although we seem to be born in different wombs, ultimately, the great nature, the Prakriti, is the womb, the source of all our material components of our being, and that divine consciousness is the source of because the consciousness within us is the reflection of that divine consciousness. Verse 5. Sattvam rajas tama iti Gunah prakriti sambhavaha Nibadhanti mahabaho Dehe dehinam avyayam. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, these gunas, O mighty armed one, that are born of nature, Prakriti, bind fast the immutable, embodied being in this body. Everything Krishna has told us in the previous verse, all the material entities have come from Prakriti. The three essential characteristics of Prakriti have also come from Prakriti. They are born of nature, Prakriti. And what do? I said one other meaning of the term guna is a rope. And so that's how they bind us. So it's a kind of a play on words. The word also means an essential characteristic, but it also means a rope. They bind, beautiful, it says immutable embodied being. Now, if something is immutable, it's how can you tie something? How can you hold something? How can you grasp something which is essentially immutable? So that being, that consciousness, which is within this body, the word is dehi, that's why it's called embodied. So consciousness, which seems to be in this body, is now tied up, is now imprisoned, so to speak, by these gunas, three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And how they tie, how they imprison this embattled consciousness in the body, so to speak, is described in the following three verses. So verse 6. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukasangena badhnati Jnana sangena chanagha. Of these, sattva, on account of its stainlessness, is luminous and free from evil. It binds the embodied self by attachment to happiness and by attachment to knowledge, O sinless one. Now, sattva the first of these three gunas, is nirmala, is free from any impurity, free from most of the grossness of matter. It's still material, but you could say it's a very superior kind of matter, if you like. Let me just tell you one story. I'll just remind you of a story. Many of you are aware of it, which Sri Ramakrishna used to tell. The story of a traveler who was passing through a jungle, a wooded area. And then it was very dense forest, and then three thieves come and catch him. And of course, as thieves do, that's their job. So they free him of all his belongings. They take away all his belongings. And then one of the thieves says, let's kill him, because otherwise, it's a potential danger. He might go and report it to the cops. Let's kill him. Then the second one says, no, I don't think killing is necessary. Let's just tie him up to this tree. And then we can go away. And by the time, if he's freed, or wild animals might come and take him, or if he's freed, even if he's freed, by which time we will be far away. So they then tie him up, and then they leave. After they have gone for a while, the third one, who so far didn't say anything, but who cooperated with these people in tying up this fellow, then quietly comes back and then frees this person and says, oh, I'm so sorry. I hope you were not hurt a lot with this tying, and you may not be able to find your way through this forest. Come, let me show you the way, so you can go home quickly. So this third thief, still a thief, but a good thief. He takes him to the edge of the forest and points out, that's your home. Now go quickly before any other thieves come and catch you. And this poor guy, he's already lost everything, so he is very grateful to this third thief. He says, I'm so grateful to you. Why don't you just come with me? I just would like to reward you for saving my life. I would have been dead. And the thief says, no, I can't go beyond you. I'm showing you the way, but he's a thief too. So there is a warrant against him as well. So I don't want to get caught. So that's a beautiful story. So the three thieves in this story are the three gunas. So the first thief who said, kill him, that's what tamas does. It's reckless, it's usually destructive. The second thief said, let's tie him up. So that's rajas, which ties people up. There's very kind of anger and kind of it's destructive enough, but it's just more of kind of a bondage rather than killing. And a third sattva, that was the third thief, who untied him and showed him the way. But this is important. That third thief could not go right till the end. He said, beyond this I can't go. So these are the three gunas here. And that's why it is said, sattva on account of stainlessness. It's not, stainlessness in a relative way. If it were completely, truly stainless, then sattva would be God. Sattva is not God, it's a thief. So less stain than the other two gunas, that's all what you could say. But because of that, it's luminous and free from evil. Again, relatively speaking, it's still a thief. And it binds the self through attachment to happiness and knowledge. You see, when someone leads a good life, a relatively stainless life, a relatively life which is free from evil, that does bring an amount of peace and contentment in life. People who may not be religious, who may not even think about spirituality, but are leading good, honest lives. Now that kind of an honest, good life does bring some amount of calmness, peace, contentment. And what does that do? You feel, I am so peaceful, I am so happy, I am so peaceful. And that knowledge that I am happy, I am peaceful is a bondage. Because who is that I? That I is spirit. Where does that happiness belong? To whom does that knowledge belong? Now, knowledge, happiness are attributes of the body and mind. That knowledge that we have it comes to the brain. The happiness is a state of the mind. So it's not really me that's who is happy or knowledgeable, but that kind of an ignorance, it's through that ignorance that sattva binds us. Which is why also, when you are meditating, and on some days if you have a really good meditation, and you experience some amount of happiness, as you will, when the mind gets concentrated, it's freed from all distractions, there is a sense of joy in the heart. But this is important. The moment you feel during your meditation, today I'm feeling so happy, or today I'm so lucky to have this good meditation, the moment that thought comes, your meditation has ended. So that's why they say that the experience of joy in meditation, paradoxically enough, can be an obstacle if you stop to enjoy it. It's in fact an obstacle called rasa aswadanam. So what the idea is this. When you are meditating, and some days you have a good meditation, and you feel happy, don't get distracted by that happiness. Keep on repeating your mantra. Keep on focusing on your ishta. Because the moment you become aware of that happiness, you stop being aware of your object of meditation. You can't be aware of two entities at the same time. Sometime you have read in Ramakrishna's life that how in the course of our spiritual practice, sometimes the supernatural powers come. In yoga also we read, sometimes the supernatural powers come. And these powers can be obstacles because they are great distractions. They are so wonderful that it's so easy to forget the main purpose of why we are doing the practice and get our kind of derailed. Our practice can get derailed. Now, whether or not such great supernatural powers come in our life, and they might, but at least this thing can come easily. You have a good meditation and this little bit of joy comes. That's not any less of a distraction. Later on, after you have finished your meditation, then you can look back and feel happy about it. Don't be in a hurry to taste that happiness while you are meditating. So even the awareness that I am happy, I am very wise or knowledgeable, this is the experience that sattva will bring. But through that awareness, associating that I, the spirit, with happiness or knowledge, that we are bound by that. Verse 7. Rajo ragatmakam vidhi Trishna sanga samudbhavam Tan nibadhnati kaunteya Karma sangena dehinam. Know rajas to be of the nature of passion, the source of desire and attachment. O son of Kunti, it binds fast the embodied self by attachment to action. So we are told about the nature of sattva, what it does and how it binds us. Same thing with regard to rajas now. Its nature is passion. That's why we saw in that story of the thief. It's very kind of a passionate response. Tie up this person. The source is desire and attachment. Now, these are the two things that are there in our lives. Desire for that which we don't have, and attachment is that to that which we have. So both these play a role. And desire, as we have seen, leads to action. If I want something, then I will want to take some action to go and get it. If I'm attached to something, then I would like to preserve it. Even that needs action, because there is always, I'm worried that what I'm attached to will be taken away from me. And therefore, both desire and attachment leads to action. And once you do action, then you're caught up in the results of action in the form of joy and sorrow. And that's how we remain tied up in this karma chain, as we have discussed in earlier occasions. So that's the way Rajas will bind us. Because Rajas is the source of desire and attachment, and it impels us into action. Verse 8. Tamastva jnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhihi tannibadhnati bharata. But know tamas to be born of ignorance and deluding all embodied beings. It binds fast, O descendant of Bharata, through inadvertence, laziness, and sleep. So tamas comes through ignorance, and that's why tamas is associated with sleep, because sleep is being ignorant of our waking life. And deluding all embodied beings. Any kind of a lazy, dull state, we are not able to think clearly. And therefore it binds us through inadvertence. Inadvertence means being careless. Sometimes we just do things out of impulse without carefully thinking it through. The word here in Sanskrit is called pramada. Laziness and sleep. So these are the three primary characteristics of tamas. Inadvertence, meaning carelessness or not being mindful, laziness and sleep. And all these three are summarized in verse number 9. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati Rajav karmani bharata Jnanamavrityatu tamaha Pramade sanjayatyuta. Sattva binds one to happiness, Rajas, or descendant of Bharata, binds one to work, while Tamas, by covering knowledge, binds one to inadvertence, etc. All the three will bind us one way or the other. So we'll stop here today, and we will see this discussion will continue and give us greater insight into how gunas operate in our lives. So you have any ideas, thoughts, questions on what we saw today?
Swamiji, can you expand a bit on the difference between the sleep associated with tamas and deep sleep that we talk about often?
Well, that's tamas too. Any kind of a state of inactivity. So in deep sleep, tamas is very much there.
But some of my understanding is that it's through deep sleep is that we stop associating with the gross body. So you actually achieve a high state of consciousness.
Right. You are not associating with it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. See, remember, it's the characteristics of matter. And the body and mind are still there. Of course, you are not identified with it. So yes,
So does that suggest even through tamas you can achieve realization?
No. What I'm saying is this. In deep sleep, you are not aware of the body and mind. But you still have ignorance in deep sleep. So in deep sleep is not a state of enlightenment. You're still, in fact, we cannot get more dull than when we are just lying like a log of wood, right? So it is a state of ignorance, no doubt about it. In fact, everything has gone, and just as we said in the beginning, all the gross universe, everything has gone and remained in a seed form in our ignorance. And ignorance is the basis of deep sleep. So yes, the tamas is very much there. Yeah.
So continue to that, Maharaj. So enlightenment, if can come when I'm awake, so it can come when I'm asleep. So in the deep sleep, there is a chance that I can achieve that.
Oh, sure.
So even though how I can in deep sleep when I do not have control for anything, then how I can achieve that?
No, you cannot achieve that in the sense of, because there is no sense of agency. But it can occur any time. The veil that covers you can tear open any time. But there is no such thing that in sleep it cannot happen. But if it happens, you are not doing it consciously because you don't have a sense of agency. But it can happen anytime. Yeah. Anyone?
Swamiji, you in the 13th chapter we talked about the 24 elements. So, and then you said about Kshetrajna and Kshetra. So now we are talking about here the three sort of gunas. Is that something in between the gross and the pure?
No, the 24 principles, they are all material entities. All of them are material thing, and all of them are subject to the three gunas. So anything that is material, which is gross or subtle, the gunas will always be there. The only place where the gunas are not is in pure consciousness. Other than pure consciousness, other than Brahman, whatever is there, gunas are embedded into all of them.
Swamiji, and my understanding of gunas is that none of them is bad or good. I mean, they're all interlacing each other, and depending on how one feels at a certain point, for example, tamas can be even helpful when one is super rajasic and you need the grounding and you need the stability in oneself. So, and as you clarified several weeks ago, is because my understanding of it was apparently wrong, is that, it's not that one should strive for sattva, it's about balancing the gunas and piercing through, of course with the help of sattva, but none of them is the best or the worst, so it's just the interchange of all three, depending on a certain day.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, you could also say that the more we try to cultivate sattva, the balancing will occur. So, trying to increase the sattva within us itself means trying to balance all the three.
Yeah, I think I was.
In fact, in some books, we are just kind of going to the very basic, like three gunas, but in some books they kind of, perhaps you could say, make it a little bit more complicated, or you could say they kind of nuance it a little bit more. So there is, for instance, there is the tamas of sattva and the rajas of sattva. So the good sattva that you might say is the tamas of sattva. So, there are kind of the subtleties involved there. Yeah.
I think I was about to ask the same thing, that still we need to go towards having sattva, so that ultimately we have to get all over all the three gunas.
Sure. I mean, if you want to kind of flesh it out, this idea a little bit, I mean, you could say, well, when you are meditating, you're completely still. So there is no activity there. So just like you are completely still when you're asleep, you are completely still when you're meditating. So you could say, but that stillness of meditation and the stillness of just being asleep, you could say both are tamas, because there's the inactivity. But yet, the stillness of meditation is a better inactivity than just being dead to the world. So these are the kind of subtleties or distinctions we can make. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, Swami Vivekananda, in many of his talks, he often spoke about overcoming tamas through rajas. In fact, he encouraged this kind of a hierarchy, that when people are just kind of just lazy and not doing anything, for them, because the challenge is this, sometimes externally the two extremes can look alike. It's like a person who is in deep samadhi can be just still, and a person is completely stoned with drugs or with alcohol can also be just sitting in one place. So sometimes externally the tamas and sattva we may not be able to distinguish. And so Swamiji said, therefore, that in fact criticizing the India of his times in the late 19th century, when he said everyone is immersed in tamas, he wanted to kind of rouse up the people. And so he said sometimes it's better to do some evil rather than just doing nothing. So if you must first get up and do something, because if you do something bad, at least there is a possibility that you may do something good once that activity comes. But if you don't do anything at all, you're just going to remain like a stone. And so the utter let me tell you an incident. There was one person who came to Swamiji and asked him some rather very, I forget, there's some kind of a very stupid question. There's something so senseless. And then Swamiji asked him, he said, can you tell lies? And this person is like, oh. And then Swamiji said, first learn to tell lies. He said that, again, understand the sense in which he said it. He said that person was so stupid, so utterly dull, that he was so even incapable of telling a lie, that he said there's no hope for him to be able to even do something, to do something good. Because for both you need an initiative. So in order to kind of rouse him up, he said, do something, even if it's telling a lie. Because then you kind of, once you move into action, then there is a chance that you may do something good. And then Swamiji, of course, clarified, saying that he was an extreme case, so it's not like he's advocating it for everyone. But I think this is a good thing to remember, that oftentimes we should not mistake our laziness to be like, oh, I have become so calm, I'm so unaffected by everything that's happening around me. That may not be due to sattva at all. It may be just I'm so dull that I'm not reacting to anything outside. And so yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so we'll stop here today. And next time we will begin with verse number 10. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. Again and again. So next Wednesday, we will not have Gita. Instead, we will have a special lecture. We have a guest Swami, Swami Yuktatmananda, who is the head of our center in New York. He will be visiting us and he will give a special lecture on, his topic would be, what makes the world real? So many of the ideas that we have been studying in the Gita will, I imagine, come up for discussion. So I would encourage you all to come. So that next Wednesday, instead of the Gita, what makes the world real by Swami Yuktatmananda. On 1st of May, this Sunday, upcoming Sunday, our satsang, our subject will be to labor is to pray. That would be the theme. A Tuesday and Saturday, Arti and meditation will continue as usual. So you're welcome for all of these programs. We'll conclude with a prayer now. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.